Why discipline is more powerful than motivation. We've all been there. You have a huge goal, maybe it's starting a business, getting in shape, or learning a new skill. You begin with a massive burst of energy. You feel inspired, ready to conquer the world. But a few weeks later, the excitement fades. The effort feels heavy. And you find yourself paralyzed, waiting for that feeling of motivation to come back. The truth is, this cultural obsession with motivation is built on a flawed premise that our feelings should dictate our actions. In this video, we're going to challenge this idea and argue for a more powerful, sustainable path to success. I will show you why motivation is a fickle and unreliable force, and why discipline, the consistent, deliberate practice of taking action regardless of how you feel, the true, unshakable foundation of greatness. We will deconstruct this myth with science, and then give you a comprehensive, 10-step blueprint to build a life of action, free from the tyranny of your fleeting emotions. Part 1. The scientific problem with motivation. To understand why discipline is a superior strategy, we first need to understand the fundamental limitations of motivation from a scientific perspective. The problem isn't a deficit of character, but a complex interplay of your brain's neurochemistry, its evolutionary wiring, and its psychological landscape. The problem with the motivation molecule. Motivation is a function of your brain's intricate reward system. A key player in this system is the neurotransmitter dopamine, which is often called the motivation molecule. But its role is frequently misunderstood. Dopamine doesn't directly cause a feeling of pleasure. Instead, it acts as a reinforcing agent, linking a specific action to a predicted reward, and thereby teaching your brain which behaviors are worth repeating. Herein lies the central flaw. Our modern world has been engineered to hijack this system. Behaviors that provide a large, immediate dopamine hit, such as checking social media, eating junk food, or watching a viral video, desensitize your brain's reward centers. This makes the smaller, delayed rewards of productive work, like the satisfaction of a completed project, feel less significant and less desirable. Your brain, following the path of least resistance, will consistently choose the instant, high dopamine activity over the productive, low dopamine one, creating a vicious cycle of procrastination and inaction. This neurological reality shows us why motivation is a shaky emotional state, rather than a dependable strategy. To achieve long-term goals, we need a system that can bypass this flawed reliance on feeling inspired and instead automate the required actions. The paradox of willpower, the concept of willpower, the ability to resist a short-term desire in favor of a long-term goal, is often seen as a key component of motivation. But a paradox exists within this very idea. How is it possible that a person can most strongly desire to do something, for example, eat a tasty hamburger, and at the same time most strongly desire to prevent themselves from doing it? It's a mental battle that is incredibly difficult to win because it pits one desire against another. Furthermore, research from Florida State University suggests that willpower is a limited mental resource. Much like a muscle, it can be depleted by making multiple self-controlled decisions in a row, making subsequent efforts at self-control more difficult. This explains why you might start a day feeling disciplined, but find yourself giving in to temptations by the afternoon. This research reveals that relying on willpower is an unsustainable strategy. It is a finite resource that is drained by constant decision-making, and is not a solid foundation for long-term consistency. Part 2. The unshakable power of discipline. Discipline is the strategic answer to the pitfalls of motivation. It is defined as a resolute adherence to a regimen or a course of action that enables you to pursue long-term goals by foregoing immediate satisfaction. Discipline is not about feeling inspired. It is about building a system that makes the desired action automatic. This isn't a punitive or rigid approach, but a liberating one that conserves our limited mental energy and frees us from the tyranny of our fleeting emotions. The true power of discipline lies in its ability to be transformed into a subconscious habit. The initial phase of a new habit requires conscious effort from the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for higher-level thinking and self-regulation. This is the phase that requires discipline. However, with consistent repetition, the brain shifts responsibility to a different region, the basal ganglia. This part of the brain operates subconsciously, turning a deliberate action into an automatic, second-nature behavior. Once the habit is formed, it requires minimal effort or deliberation, freeing up precious mental resources for other tasks. This is the core reason discipline is more powerful than motivation. It creates a reliable, automated behavior that persists even after the initial motivation or interest dissipates. Now that we understand the power of this system, let's explore 10 evidence-based strategies for building discipline and cultivating a life of action. Part 3. The 10-step blueprint for action. These 10 strategies are not quick fixes, but tools to help you get unstuck and build momentum. Tip 1. The principle of tiny habits. The feeling of being overwhelmed is the primary barrier to action. A large, daunting task can feel The tiny habits method, pioneered by behavioral scientist B.J. Fogg, is a direct countermeasure. Tip 2. Master the habit loop. All human behavior is governed by a neurological feedback loop. A craving, a response, and a reward. To build a new, positive habit, you must learn to manipulate this cycle. To start a morning exercise habit, for example, the cue could be a gym bag placed by the door. The response is putting on your shoes, which leads to a feeling of accomplishment, the reward. That reinforces the habit. Tip 3. The power of the 2-minute rule. This rule, from David Allen's Getting Things Done, states that if a task can be completed in 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. This simple rule serves a dual purpose. It prevents the mental clutter of insignificant tasks from accumulating and building a sense of overwhelm, and it builds a bias for action that spills over into other areas of your life. Tip 4. The Pomodoro technique. Large, complex projects can be mentally draining, leading to a state of cognitive fatigue that is often mistaken for laziness. The Pomodoro technique directly addresses this by breaking down work into focused, manageable sprints. Traditionally, 25 minutes of work followed by a 5-minute break. This technique mitigates the overwhelming feeling of a large task and prevents burnout, which is a key cause of long-term inaction. Tip 5. Strategic routines and time blocking. One of the greatest psychological benefits of a structured routine is that it reduces decision fatigue. When you have a fixed schedule for your most important habits, you no longer have to expend mental energy on a series of small decisions. What to do first, what to eat, or when to exercise. To make good habits easier, one should reduce friction. For example, leaving your gym clothes laid out the night before makes it easier to exercise in the morning. Conversely, to make bad habits harder, one should increase friction. Tip 7. The art of habit stacking. Habit stacking is a technique for building new behaviors by leveraging existing ones. Tip 8. Cultivating self-compassion. The cycle of inaction is often fueled by negative self-talk and shame. A more effective and sustainable approach is to cultivate self-compassion, to practice of extending the same kindness and understanding to oneself that one would offer to a friend. This helps you break the negative cycle of guilt and procrastination, allowing you to accept your struggles and try again with a fresh perspective. Tip 9. Leveraging social support and accountability. For many, a lack of internal motivation can be counterbalanced by external forces. Accountability is a key component of this. By finding a friend, coworker, or family member who will hold you accountable for your goals, you create an external check that can help you get going, even when you feel unmotivated. This method works because knowing you have to report your progress to someone else creates a social pressure to follow through, which helps conserve your limited willpower. Tip 10. The unwavering link to physical health. The most foundational and often overlooked tip is to prioritize physical health. Your body's state directly governs your brain's ability to generate motivation. A sedentary lifestyle or poor diet can lead to chronic inflammation, which directly dampens your brain's dopamine system, sapping your motivation. Conversely, regular exercise, a balanced diet, and quality sleep directly improve the functioning of your brain's motivational systems. The journey to a more proactive life is not a linear one. It's a process of continuous improvement. The 10 strategies outlined in this report are not a checklist to be completed once, but a toolkit to be used flexibly and with self-awareness. The most critical lesson is that progress is about consistency, not perfection. A great practical technique to aid. This is the 2-day rule. Never skip a habit 2 days in a row. This simple rule helps maintain momentum, even after a lapse, and reinforces the understanding that progress is about consistency, not an all-or-nothing mindset. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs a push. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell for more content on psychology, productivity, and personal growth. Thanks for watching.